Okay, it finally happened. I found a coffee expert and brought him onto the podcast. So this podcast has nothing to do with real estate, but it has everything to do with coffee. So if you like coffee, even if you don't like coffee, you should listen to this because Gustavo is a great guy. He's from El Salvador. He came to Canada. He started roasting coffee up here. Wait till you hear his story. I'm just pumped to be able to share this with you. And I roped Nick into this podcast as well. So Nick is sitting on this, and Nick is not nearly into coffee as much as I am. So you hear him ask some very different questions and maybe just scratching his head as to why I even care about this stuff so much. But if you love coffee, then you need to know Gustavo and his wife, Leena, who is up here. He's from El Salvador. She's from Finland. They met. They immigrated up here with their kids, and I'll let him fill in the rest of the story. So it's a great chat. We're just thrilled and honored to be able to support these guys in some small, tiny way by sharing their story. But they are roasting beautiful coffee here in Oakville and supplying specialty coffee shops from Toronto to Hamilton. So just great people. And with that, let's get on with the show.
Are you ready to live life on your terms? Is it time to take charge? Real estate, business building, the economy, health and nutrition, and more. It's the Your Life, Your Term Show with Tom and Nick Carazza. Are you ready? Let's go.
So this is a big thrill for me personally. Oh, by the way, Nick, can you hear me?
No, I'm having difficulty. Can you
Gustavo,
ask
we
again?
always check because one time we didn't do that, and I don't think we recorded Nick properly or something. I forget if that was the case. Anyway,
No, there was no case. You just do it for no reason.
We had to check that we could record Nick. So we are live with Gustavo. Gustavo, you are the name of your company is Firebat Coffee.
Yes.
Is that the actual name? Firebat Coffee.
Firebat Coffee Corp. Yes.
Okay. I'm so excited because anyone listening to this for any amount of time knows that I really am in love with coffee. And I'm in love with tequila. Those are the two things that I really, really enjoy. So to have someone who knows their coffee is really a thrill for me. So Nick, you can
Is it coffee or like a
Nick,
good espresso? Because it's not coffee.
Nick's not allowed to chime in at all.
No, I'm going to tell them why coffee's not good. Right now I'm looking up all the studies that say coffee's bad for you, and I'm
not
just
talking about if coffee's good or bad. I'm just talking my personal enjoyment.
But what is? No, it's not like you don't like an American coffee. You like an espresso, right?
No, a good American coffee I'll enjoy.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's just a good American coffee. Like when we were at Gustavo, when we were at your place, and you had that pour over coffee. Nick, you'd be in shock at the flavors of this coffee. Like I always grew up to think bold, like what would I say, like rich and bold.
Yeah.
Is the good coffee.
Yeah.
But Gustavo's coffee. Am I saying your name properly right now?
Kind of.
No, say it right.
Gustavo. Yes.
Some of Gustavo's coffees are like, what would you like? What are some of the tastes? Like Nick, you would be in shock. They were like fruity.
Yeah. So what's going on with coffee right now, that is called the third wave of coffee, right? And now, like I told you that day, we're going into the fourth wave. So what that means is first wave was really the cans. Back in the day, super smoky, ashy coffee, just a caffeine vehicle. Second wave was like the chains, massive chains out of Seattle who started, to bump up the game.
You don't even want to say their name, eh?
No.
Just out of Seattle. Okay, yeah, okay. I see where you stand. I see where you stand. Okay.
And they basically, they massified the consumption of coffee. And in a way, they paved the road for the third wave.
They did elevate the discussion for sure.
Yeah, because compared to some other...
compared
some
to countries, the donut shops, That's what I'm going to say.
Some donut shop coffee. I'm not a coffee expert by any stretch of the imagination, but there was a difference.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Not even a taste, just on your stomach. There's a difference, I think.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was more a difference in creating some sort of like cocktails type dessert kind of drinks
and
based out of coffee.
And a culture around it, too.
And a culture.
Like you go and sit there and enjoy it, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the second wave.
And then the third wave started when we, in the coffee culture around the world, we started to discover that there were much more flavors in the lighter roasts of coffee. So then, like the world separated into the espresso world and the pour-overs for the extraction of all those like nice flavors that are quite exotic, like berries.
I was in shock tasting your coffee.
Clementine, honey, molasses.
Nick,
where do the flavors come from though? The soil?
The soil, the varietal of the coffee. Like now you have with the how global farming is nowadays. So I think it's the same that happened with wine. Like you have people bringing seeds from Kenya to Guatemala and growing varietals that were not there back in the days, but that are beautiful, and there's a lot of science behind them. So then if producers that process them, they get, well, first of all, coffee is a fruit before being the
Which
beverage.
most people don't know, but I think some people think coffee is like almost a seed,
yeah,
or like a grain, even. Yeah. I don't think people think of it as a fruit.
No, they think it's like rice.
It's red. Is it red color?
Red color when it's ripe, and then it turns into like a burgundy color, which is the peak of the ripeness, and that's where the sugars of the fruit are at the maximum. That's when you should collect them. But that requires visual inspection and people doing it, and that is not possible in the mass-produced world of coffee. Basically, you need cheap caffeine to fuel the world. So that's why this third wave and this new world of coffee exists. Right, and with this coffee, you really don't need to add sugar, cream. Like it becomes such a gourmet experience, like wine, and it's a conversational item, right? Do you feel this? Do you feel that? And
it was shocking, Nick, when we had the samples at your office, what do you call your office? The
roastery.
The roastery. Yeah. When we were there, and you did the pour over technique to for us to enjoy those coffees. Some of the coffee was so light. Like I was telling Carol, my wife, I'm like, can you taste this coffee? Like I taste fruit in the coffee. Yeah. Which I never associated coffee with fruity tastes before. Yeah. Like it was really light. Like you're getting totally different taste experience in this coffee. Yeah. Okay, so it has to be picked at a certain ripeness to get some of those flavors extracted when you finally brew it. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's what happens. And also, you have producers that are becoming experts in different drying methods. So usually, coffees back in the days in Africa, they did a process that is now gaining a lot of traction, which is called dry processing or natural sun-dried. So you basically dry the whole fruit to create like a raisin type of dried fruit, and then because of that process, you can get lots of fruity notes like tropical fruits, stone fruits, peach, all that.
As opposed to what were they doing before?
As opposed to before, they were washing all the layers of the fruit and just leaving the seed and drying the seed, and then you get coffees that are more flatter, more in the chocolatey world, good for espressos, but there's really not much fun compared to all these experiments that are taking place nowadays.
And what about the caffeine content? Where does that come? That's because how the coffee's roasted, or
no? That is the genetics of the bean, and every bean of Arabica coffee, the purely Arabica, no hybrids, no nothing. They have 1% of caffeine, which in a 8-ounce cup will be about 100 milligrams.
Okay, so let me pause here for a second. I just want to bring everyone up to speed with your story. You're not born in Canada.
No.
You're born where?
In El Salvador.
How does someone from El Salvador, you're married to a Finnish wife?
Yes.
Leena, correct?
Leena, yeah.
Leena. So give us this, how do you get from El Salvador to Oakville, Ontario, roasting coffee next to where we have our gym, where we go to our gym? How does that go? Give us the story here, and then I'll ask you more about the coffee.
Yeah. So this started 3 years ago. When we relocated ourselves to Canada, and literally before that,
with kids or without kids?
With kids, with 2 kids. Right now they're 7 and 5. There were 2 and 4 at the time, and it was very scary. But also, I don't know. There is this thing that you can call it the 4-year-old crisis, or however you want to call it. But I think for a lot of people, in those during those years, you get all these questions like, what am I doing? What do I want to do in the future? Like, when I die, am I going to be proud of what I've done? And all these sort of questions, very existential. So I told my wife
You're
that
a very deep person, all right? How old are you right now?
42.
42, okay.
And I told her, I want to quit. I don't want to be doing this. I was working for a big airline, a Latin American airline. And I was managing 13 airports in the U.S. and also the Toronto airport. And
No
I was
way, you were managing Pearson?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, to make a summary, one day we just opened the map of the world and we said, where do we want to go? What do we want to do?
You found the coldest place you could find.
It was it was the middle point between El Salvador and Finland. You know.
Oh, got it. Okay. Oh, wow. Everybody has very unique reasons for choosing Canada.
Yeah, because I knew it was super cold, just like Finland, if we would have decided to go there. But yeah, and we liked a lot the multiculturalism and the very progressive way of thinking in Canada. Because I was offered when I was in the airline to go and live in Florida, and I didn't want to do it. Like, that's not the
You're not going to live next to a Walgreens, you know?
Kind of crappy coffee. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
No, but you know what? It's one of the things that I hear often from immigrants as well. That they're like, look, there's other places that have, you know, like many different cultures living in the city, but their opinion and was that in Toronto, it's more well received. It doesn't feel as segregated, like everyone's in their own little, you know, in their pockets.
Because almost everyone's an immigrant.
I think that's why.
Toronto. Yeah.
But it's kind of cool that it's recognized like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's pretty cool. So
I have Polish friends now in Canada. Polish friends from Moldova, Romania.
yeah.
Well,
yeah,
Peter
sure.
we just did a podcast with Peter from the Czech Republic
Yeah.
here. I mean, it's just people from all over the world,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you decide Canada.
Canada
You
first.
navigate
and
through our immigration process.
Yeah.
How difficult was that?
It took 2 years because we did the skilled workers like track, and the project was supposed to happen in Montreal, and we had everything set. Actually, we leased a house with my wife in Montreal, and after some days there, like there's again this hunch, and I was sailing those years, you know, with like intuition. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I violated all the rules of business that I learned. Like, I did an MBA, my wife as well, but we just went with feeling. And
this is how I talk to Nick all the time. He just laughs at me.
because there's something that doesn't add up, but you cannot explain
You know
it.
why?
Right?
Because so Montreal, look, we have some good clients from Montreal and stuff, but you're giving me the perfect opportunity. It was probably the Montreal Canadiens, the hockey team. You don't want to be a Habs fan, a Montreal Canadiens fan, so you came to Toronto where you could be a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. So it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
That was your gut speaking to you.
Yeah, and like I didn't like Montreal is beautiful. It's a beautiful city.
It is beautiful.
But I remember I told my wife, if we had no kids, or if we would be students or something, yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I can see that.
But not like, because even though, and I learned French from 0 to fluent just to make the project happen.
Oh, wow.
But even then, and so finally, the last point of the equation is the person, Toronto airport manager, lives in Oakville. And he was my friend, so I came to Oakville. I saw the city for a week, and
Wow.
to me it's beautiful, and I stayed.
That's crazy. And then you found a lease. Like, how did you find where you're roasting coffee? That was another referral from the friend or something?
That was a realtor.
A realtor found that space.
Uh-huh.
But how did you decide? I'm
crazy.
curious about the coffee. So you're managing these airports
Uh-huh.
for this airline. Well, how did you get into coffee when you came
drinking
here?
crappy airport coffee.
Was that the plan, though? You're like, well, I'm going to move to Canada and do this?
Because I was already in love with coffee, and,
Okay.
and it started to grow. You know, I have this sort of personality that, like, I've been doing diving and motorcycling, but when I pick something, like, I start to scratch the surface and go down and deep and down and deep.
That's fine. I see a lot of similar. This is why you and him get along. I see this now.
I totally
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
where he's coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
Nick and I bought a property. Now we own a real estate brokerage. You know, it's the same thing. It was all
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah.
So you start to get into, you know, the technicalities and the science of it, and then you get excited and you want to learn more and do more. So eventually I said, you know what, this has to me, it has an ethical purpose, because El Salvador is the most deforested country in the Americas.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Wow.
So, and
El Salvador is the size of Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
Gustavo was saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
yeah. So
Is that small?
That small.
Wow.
And in that little piece of land, you have 20,000 coffee producers, most of them like struggling, like you have no idea, with climate change, with social problems, with everything. So I kind of found a call in my passion for coffee and the situation of El
So
Salvador.
everybody just owns a little piece of land is growing coffee.
Yeah.
Basically. And Nick, Gustavo, you were saying that it's the volcanic. How many volcanoes are in that small space?
About 120.
Nick, 120 volcanoes.
I'm looking it up right now. I got to look up this place.
So,
Wow.
so that many coffee producers, it literally is independent farmers who are just growing coffee.
Yeah.
And they
yeah.
sell it to not locals. They're
No.
selling it to companies.
In general, like the good coffees, usually the good coffees, I mean for exportation, right? They are consolidated by exporters and mills that they process the coffees and then are shipped, to big chains. But the specialty, the jewels of the coffee, they are just direct traded.
Okay, so is that so? How are you sourcing your coffee? It's a friend of yours.
Yeah. So it's like my brother. So he's a really good friend of mine, and he gave me a lot of support in this project. And he's the one in El Salvador who does the sourcing. He is already a roaster, and he has been in coffee for over about 12 years now. So with him together, we started the idea and the project, and we said, yeah, well, you know what? I think I'm gonna migrate.
So you not only moved countries, you moved countries and changed careers.
Yeah, because
Nick, that's insane.
If you're gonna start
That's insane.
again, let's do it all the way.
Yeah, no, good for you. Good for you.
See, I'm the type of person that now that I hear this story, I'm not even a huge coffee person, but I'm like, I want that coffee.
Yeah.
Like I want your coffee just because I know the story, and
I
think I'm like, oh man, it's got to be good. Like if he's coming from these private little guys, this guy knows his stuff. It's coming up here. It's not mass produced. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in. Like
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I need to get rid of my Nespresso machine.
Well, we
Do you
have to
make
go back to
do you make Nespresso pods with your
No.
coffee?
Okay, but we have to go back and do the multi-cup tasting again, but which we'll get to. But anyway, so your friend is actually the farmer then?
No, he's a roaster, and we bought a small farm,
Awesome.
3 years ago, which is like a medium-term project. So we reforested completely, only with very, sick varietals, like awesome varietals of coffee. We said, you know what, this is gonna be the future dream, and it's going well. Trees are healthy. And
Why is El Salvador so deforested before we move forward?
Basically because of the population. So it's the size of Lake Ontario, but it has about 6 million people inside. And many of the people in the rural areas, they use wood for cooking. So as a fuel. Then, that...
Wow,
has
such a
to
small area. There's urban areas and rural areas.
Yeah.
Such a small country. I thought maybe it's just all urban. But okay.
No.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So they're using the wood
Yeah.
for survival,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Okay.
So again, then if nobody really supports, right, like sustainable agriculture, then more and more they will take over what's left, right, and even the coffee plantations.
Okay, so you have your farm there that you're actually growing coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's the coffee that you're currently brewing?
No.
Okay,
no.
so tell us what you're brewing.
So hold on, you have your own farms there where you're going for coffee?
Yeah, as you were Googling up there, they bought a farm 3 years ago?
We have
wow.
a small farm, but that is like a medium-term project. So that's not the coffee that we're bringing. We are working with a group of...
Wait a second. So through you, we can buy our own coffee. What is it, a tree that you plant? Is it a coffee tree?
You can buy some acres of...
No, but the fruit of the coffee, it's coming from a tree
yeah,
or a plant?
Yeah. No, it's a tree.
It's a tree.
It's a tree.
Okay. Oh my gosh, Nick, we can buy through Gustavo.
I want
We're
one.
very kind to him. We can buy our own coffee trees.
Yeah, that'd be
as an
great.
investment into his farm. This is brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. We'll talk about that offline afterwards. Okay. So you're getting some other coffee from El Salvador where you know the growers, I assume.
Yeah. So right now it's a portfolio of around between 15 and 20 producers. And so each one is doing different things, and that is reflected in the flavor. But for the most part, we work with Cup of Excellence producers. And Cup of Excellence is like the highest worldwide award for coffee quality that takes place in producing countries under the same standard. So
that's where you have those tasters who are swooshing around the coffee in their mouths and rating all the coffees.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's where they discover a lot of the notes, and then as roasters you can then highlight them with the roasting.
And why does El Salvador a good coffee producing country? Because of the volcanoes?
The volcanoes and the weather. So if from Mexico all the way to the Amazon, that's the belt where coffee thrives in America, basically. And that's where you have Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala. And it's the altitude.
Why do you need the altitude?
You need it because coffee ripens very slowly. It takes 9 months from the flower to the fruit to be ready to be picked. So during those 9 months, the sugars are building up inside the fruit, and you need the temperature to be cool, and that the coffee will have shadow, no stress, so that fruit turns out to be as delicious as it can be.
Okay, got it. So it's the elevation that
The
provides
elevation.
actually the coolness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So 9 months, and then it's the coffee's picked, and at that point, are you shipping it up here right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, we have the new container in 2 days. It will get to Montreal.
So how
and
are
then
you
by-
packaging it to make sure it's good, clean coffee?
So Rodrigo, my friend and business partner in El Salvador, he vacuum seals. So he takes care of all those steps. So then when I receive the coffee here, I just have like boxes with 88 pounds of green beans inside, well labeled from which farm and everything. And
Vacuum sealed in those foil bags,
Yeah.
kind of?
Mhm.
Okay, as opposed to burlap sacks.
Exactly.
Where moisture is getting in, and so you're
Air.
protecting it through the transportation process
Yeah.
to the best you can, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
probably the only way to transport it, I would imagine.
That's one, and then we have seen like some Japanese, buying the refrigerated containers all the way from El Salvador to Japan to preserve the quality.
Wow. So Japan's a big coffee drinking
Yeah.
culture?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah. They are like I would say top 5 countries in the science and in the push for greater experience in coffee. Japan, South Korea,
Finland.
most Scandinavian countries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Scandinavians like their coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we? Canada, Tim Hortons. Where are we? Top 25?
But it's happening.
Is it?
It's
Yeah.
happening.
No, I know
here.
it's. I'm just
Yeah,
joking around.
yeah.
And I'm a Tim Hortons fan too. Come on, I'm Canadian. Of course, I'm a Tim Hortons fan.
But downtown, there are more specialty coffee places opening up with with more variety and things like
In
that.
Oakville
I've noticed walking around.
specifically, there's not too many here in Oakville, but
Not that I-
Toronto
no.
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Hamilton, you were saying for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Oakville, we have a few.
Yeah. There are a few, but yeah, for Oakville, how it is, right? It's a suburb for the most part.
Yeah.
So people, I would say, I can imagine a lot of them, they would drink their coffee while they commute or when they reach their offices.
Mhm. So who are you selling to? Are you selling to the end? You're selling to people like Tom, or are you selling to like restaurants or both? And
To everyone. No, but yeah. So mostly what we do is wholesale. We also have an online store, so we always ship our coffees. We have shipped coffees to Halifax, to BC, and many other places. But yeah, it's wholesale. And in Oakville, we work with Tribeca on Lakeshore, Sugar Sweets. They're also on Lakeshore. And
Okay, so the shops that want specialty coffee, they're finding you, you're finding them, and you're supplying these places.
Yeah.
So they have different third wave type coffee.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so can you break it down for me now on the coffee when it comes in? So you get it shipped up from El Salvador. You're roasting it how often up here?
So every week.
Every week you're doing a new roast.
So, yeah. So if anybody would stop at our roastery, what we have there will be 15 days maximum of being roasted. So that also gives you a totally different experience with aroma, with flavors.
Why? Okay, so how is other coffee shipped up? Is it usually just in containers? Like how's cheaper coffee? I can't even speak. I need a coffee. How is it shipped up here?
So in a container.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is it already
container.
roasted?
No, green.
No, not yours. But
Um,
like other coffee that we're buying, like I guess.
well,
I
whatever.
don't know
If
an
you go to the
example.
grocery store, go.
Yeah, that's already packaged. That's packaged and roasted. So that would be roasted.
No, but the
somewhere.
grocery stores have beans too, where you can get the beans at the grocery store.
Yeah, but they're roasted. So they're already
they are
roasted in
roasted.
South America somewhere?
No,
Okay.
there are like big commercial roasters
Here in Toronto.
in Canada that they do Yeah, that they get their beans in burlap sacks and they just do, dark roast or something like that. Not too much in terms of flavors, but it's mass consumption.
Okay, got it. So you are taking small batches, and then how do you roast it to extract the proper flavors? Is it all to do with the bean, and the roasting is the same for every type of bean, or is it different?
That's the secret, Tom. That's the
I
secret.
can see him smiling.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, but
have you seen his roasting machine? What do you call it?
No.
This big roasting machine? It's so cool.
It must smell nice in that place, though. I know that. Yeah.
So no, it is. It's different for different beans, and mostly because of the density. So some beans, because of the altitude and how they have been, grown, they're very dense, so they can take a lot of heat, while others might be more fragile, and you have to be more gentle with the roasting. So that's the process, and you discover that by roasting small amounts and seeing how the bean behaves, and you cup them and you check for the flavors. And
this has got to be this has got to be a labor of love, because you have an MBA. So where did you learn about roasting coffee? On YouTube or what?
No, so I took lessons in El Salvador, but really it was Rodrigo, my business partner, who polished me, because he has been judged for Cup of Excellence, judged for barista competitions. So he was already very advanced in the knowledge of coffee, and he has been roasting coffee for the last 10 years.
And I think some of the ones that we tried from you have one cup of excellence. Is it some of the beans?
Don Jaime, yeah.
Don Jaime, that's how you say it. Don Jaime. That's the one was that the lighter roast one, which I could taste the fruity flavors?
Yeah.
And with that one, why are we doing a pour over? Is that the proper way to extract the flavor? Because you know what, you know why I'm asking? Because usually I'll do in the summer when I have time, I'll grind my beans with a hand grinder, and I'll do a French press by myself. I'll grind it. I'll have a little scale. Gustavo, you'd be very proud. Yeah. Nick's seen me do this. It takes me a long time. I grind it, but it's very therapeutic. Yeah. I grind it, then I weigh my grinds, and then I put it in my French press, and then I have the water, and the Croatian water is actually really good. No, it's got mineral content. It's very, very good. And then I have my espresso, and it's, my French press, and it's actually very, very beautiful. But here in Canada, I have an espresso machine, and I have a little less time, so I'll just put the beans in the espresso machine, and I'm really picky about my grind level, if it's not too fine, not too coarse, and my water, and I'll make nice espressos that way. So that's what I do in Canada. But for you, I noticed you're doing the pour over with paper filters, which I was confused by. Why are you doing that method?
In all honesty, I find that I extract most of the notes and the most of the potency of that coffee with the paper filter, and going with a gooseneck kettle, wetting the grounds. I know,
that's my next move. That gooseneck kettle, definitely getting one of those.
Yeah. So you go gradually, just because it's chemistry, right? So you have particles that they hold notes of flavor that will react with hot water. So if you just pour everything right away, or you're gonna make some sort of like a cone when the flow of water is going through, so the walls will not extract as the center, basically. So
you're just pouring a little bit of coffee. That's why you were pouring a little bit of. I know Nick thinks this is ridiculous. I know. Brilliant. I think it's brilliant. Okay, so you're just pouring a little bit of water at a time. The one thing I'm confused about is I know that there's a health benefit to coffee that I thought with paper filters. I had read that the paper filters actually absorb some of the oils that from a health perspective might be very beneficial, and you want to use a metal filter and not a paper filter. But you were explaining the paper filter. Well, I forget. Why do you like the paper filter?
So paper filter, yes, it will capture a lot of the oils, but also will capture even the most tiny, like dust-like particles, right? So your cup of coffee will be super clean.
Okay, so really this is the cup of excellence level that you're going to.
But you will be surprised, like when the gurus, right, are cupping the coffees, they just pour hot water in a very coarse grind setup, like at the French press. And you have seen the like little bowls.
I've watched the YouTube videos.
With a spoon and
Nick, have you seen these guys do the cupping test?
No.
They suck up the coffee with like a spoon, and then they slurp it all like, And it's like why? And then they're like doing all this stuff. It's crazy.
I don't think this is crazy. Listening to you like make the coffee, I was like, man, I should really get a coffee machine and start enjoying some of this coffee just because it sounds so good.
The thing is, the catch is the time. Here in Canada, we're rushing around so much in the morning. Sometimes you want to press a button.
Yeah.
I know you think this is insulting right now, but but this is where if you can get good beans.
You know what, Tom? I just think that, and that's what my advice is always. This is more of living according to your terms, right? Like you said. So, like in my opinion, if you enjoy your coffee, then just take some minutes to do it.
It
right?
is
That's
weird.
fair.
It is weird once you learn about it. Like I was telling Nick, I think knows this. Gustavo, I think you know this, that I was experimenting with my new espresso machine, all the different grind levels against all the different water types and all the different bean types I could acquire. Do you know how many variables that is?
It's exponential.
I was brewing coffee. My nieces were over. My sister-in-law was over. My brother. I was feeding everybody coffee.
Yeah.
Everybody was freaking out, hopped up on coffee. But we really could start to taste. I could understand when the grind was. Well, let me get this straight. I think when I went too fine on most beans, I was getting sour. Sour. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I was going too coarse. It was becoming bitter.
Yeah.
And then I noticed if I put in my purified reverse osmosis water, that flavors weren't as flavorful in the coffee as if I put in aquapana or some of the Italian mineral waters.
Yeah.
So then I thought, oh my gosh, if I get the right grind level with the right water level, even from my simple espresso machine that is grinding in real time, I can get a beautiful espresso.
Yeah.
And I started feeding some of my neighbors, these Italian guys, great guys. I started giving them my espresso and they were tasting this, and it wasn't bold. You know how most people associate a good espresso with just bold and
like
rich,
a kick.
like a kick.
Yeah.
And my espresso, it's a little less bold. It's actually not completely bold, a little less bold, and you could taste the flavors.
Yeah.
Now when I go somewhere and I get an espresso and it's just a bold, harsh kick, I'm like, these guys, they're lazy. They're lazy. They didn't try all the settings. They didn't test the water, because even an espresso, which I know everybody thinks is a bold coffee, you can really get a nice cup of espresso.
Yeah.
Is how off am I? Am I correct on this?
In the espresso, there's also like infinite options.
Sure. Okay.
And you will be so surprised that in coffee shops like in Japan or Norway, you can have espressos that have an acidity that would be close to a lemon juice. It will be like, why do I want that? But that's, different people, different tastes. And acidity in coffee is something very desired in the worldwide, right, of coffee. So and
I
so
think
this third wave of coffee, sorry,
Nick,
that you're talking about.
Let's get back
No, so
to
this
the
third wave of coffee that you're talking about, this is growing because I guess is it like, it's been around for the last 5 years and it's kind of, at the same level, or you're just seeing more and more interest in it? Because the way I'm equating it to is the rest of the kind of food chain's gone, and there's a lot more interest in people from, not so much local in this case because the coffee beans up here, non-existent, but like from a more kind of smaller producers, more curated, that type of thing. So you're still seeing overall, I'm not talking about your business, but I'm just overall that trend is kind of growing in North America as well.
I think worldwide, and I think more and more people, they want to know what they put inside their bodies. And they want to know that somebody.
That's a good way to put it. That trend is.
That's why it interests me.
You are now, you hear about MCT oil and this and organic and small breweries for beer and in my opinion, I would say, I cannot say 10 out of 10, but maybe 9 out of 10 places that they engage themselves in, like small batches, craft, all that, it's always better. The taste is so much better. So I think that's what's going on.
That's why now, Nick, to your point earlier, I was in San Diego at a breakfast restaurant, and I had a regular, like I would call it an American cup of coffee, but it was a great cup of coffee. And Nick knows I generally
that's
don't.
a good restaurant, though.
Yeah.
It was all organic, and I just organic, know from the food that
it was organic eggs. It was like a little boutique breakfast place, and they served this coffee. I sat there and I generally don't like just like a standard kind of cup of coffee. It was amazing. Like I enjoyed that cup of coffee with my breakfast, and because I'm usually more an espresso type guy. But Nick, just to your point, when it's a good coffee, I can appreciate it now because I think I've gone through so much experimentation myself, like you have, where you're like, okay, this is a good cup of coffee. And then when you have a bad cup of coffee, you're like, guys, this thing is a piece of crap.
What
Like,
about
do
all
you
this
say?
mold and microtoxin?
Yeah, what about
BS
all that? Is
I've
that
heard
a
about?
lot
Is it
of
BS
just
or not?
nonsense? Or?
No, that exists. But once again, if you are going for lighter roasts, you cannot hide it. So we always say in the lighter roast, you have the truth of the coffee. If it has beautiful notes, you'll taste it. If it has mold, you'll get all these weird notes like vegetable notes or earthy notes. And that is the signal of bad produced coffees. But again, you dark roast it and
You just
there
kill
it
all
goes.
that.
Yeah, so you kill it because it's just brute force.
Yeah,
It's basically just like...
Got it. So the dark roast is a cheap and easy way just to kill it all.
Like you can mask everything.
Or mask it. You're probably still
Yeah,
getting
isn't there
some
something
of
at Starbucks? Isn't there a new thing at Starbucks like blonde? Is it a blonde thing at Starbucks? I know I'm not. I don't mean I'm not. I don't know if that's good. Well, isn't there something lighter? See, I don't know anything.
No,
about
no, they
coffee.
do have like a blonde. I think
Is that new? Or
fairly
that's
new? No, it's a few
fairly.
years now. A
few
few years. Now,
That's how up to date I am on coffee. I'm only a few years behind.
Yeah.
I'll get here.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody starting, if they wanted to play around with coffee, I would think at home, if they were to buy your beans, for example, would the easiest way then to be a French press?
Yeah.
Okay, so how many can you? What are some rules of thumb? Like how much coffee would you put per cup? Like how much ground coffee in grams?
Yeah. So I always tell, the best cup of coffee is the one that you like.
No,
but
I
as a
know.
starting parameter,
Yes, as a starting point.
I use personally, and I suggest always to start with a 14 to 1 ratio. And what that means is 14 ml of water per 1 gram of coffee. And then you do, the proportion. If you want to do like, a 300 ml cup of coffee or half a liter, then that would be the
right
proportion.
I always find I end up putting a bit more coffee when I try to read these rules of thumb, and I experimented because, and again, I'll let Nick be my proof. I sit around all summer for weeks, every morning, testing different amounts of coffee to the water ratio. And Nick, I know you've seen me measure this stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I go too far. And one time I gave his wife a cup of coffee
Yeah,
because she was
almost had a
enjoying the
heart
coffee
attack.
with me. And I said, Diana, here's this morning's brew. Here you go. And I could handle it okay. And she had it. And she was wired out of her mind or something? No, I think I just went overboard because I was trying to see how much coffee I could get away with.
Yeah.
And I went a little too far, and she was a little bit wired from the coffee. But okay, so 14 to 1 ratio.
Yeah.
You grind those beans up. For those people who don't know how to make a French press, can you walk people through it? Because it's fairly simple, and I think it's a nice pure way to enjoy it.
So in another like good rule of thumb is that a normal tablespoon will hold about 8 grams of coffee. So again, you can use that to do your calculations, but yeah, you just grind it for French press, very coarse, and then just boil the water, and when it has boiled, just wait about a minute because the temperature should be in the order of 95, 96 Celsius, so below boiling, and then you pour the water, the desired amount of water, and then you wait.
So
honestly,
you put the grounds in the coffee grind in the ground coffee in the French press.
in the French,
And you pour in the water.
and you just stir
it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you put the top of the French press.
top-
But you don't plunge it.
You don't plunge.
And you wait 3.5 or 4 minutes.
In all honesty, I wait 6 minutes.
Oh,
That's the time that I enjoy. I feel that
blowing my mind right now. I've
that-
never waited 6 minutes.
that then you extract more of
Really?
of the flavors. But
So if you wait that long, do you also get more caffeine or no?
yeah, a little bit more.
Oh, I like this.
with the longer extraction, you will get always a little bit more. Like with cold brew, for example, that stays 24 hours brewing.
Yeah,
in
Nick, we
cold
tried his
water.
cold brew there. The cold brew was nitro fuel.
Oh,
I
yeah.
told Nick if he's going to do a big workout or competition, to have
go to
your,
the gym.
Go to
And-
your. You have
No, I'll
your
have a
cold,
heart attack,
No, have
man.
your cold brew. No, I think when it's clean coffee.
That's what I'm wondering. So like the one reason I don't
When
drink
you're
coffee.
gonna have a heart attack.
Well, no, because I get pretty cranked up on coffee, but then when I come down off the caffeine, it's just not good. Like I'm not. happy about it. I'm not feeling completely there. Like I really feel like I have these peaks and valleys,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm like, I just don't like this stuff.
But that has to do with the varietals of coffee. So in mass-produced coffee, capsules and commercial chains, usually you will find in the coffee either a percentage or full of Robusta beans. And Robusta beans, they are cheaper than the Arabicas. They can be sometimes labeled as Arabicas because there are a lot of hybrids. But also those beans they have double the caffeine as the Arabicas. So it maybe doesn't sound too extreme if you say double the caffeine, but it is, because in a cup of coffee, instead of having 100 milligrams, you have 200, 300. It's a lot. So then people get all these jitters and all these weird reactions, but it's because of bad caffeine. Like, it took me a while to understand, because also with tequila, you'll be like, how much alcohol is in this bottle? And it will say 20%. But if it's a bad 20%, you will be destroyed, right? The hangover and
no, I'm sold. Yeah. I'm already thinking.
Gustavo,
I need to buy.
We can have some. If you need some tequila, we can have some tequila.
Don't
worry. Yeah.
I need to go buy a French press and try some of this coffee. I need to bring some home. I just looked on your site too. I want this one with the cherry. This is the one you were talking about, the good stuff with the cherries. What was it called? Don Jaime. Don Jaime. Yeah, honey, apricot, and red cherry.
You have some Don Jaime, and then you have some Don Julio.
Yeah.
No, but I just want to understand something. The Robusta bean. So it's mixed in with Arabica beans a lot of times?
Yeah, as a filler, because of in the commodity price, the Robusta is way, way cheaper than the Arabica. So there's always a temptation, to put 20%, 30%, 40% of Robusta beans inside of
because I found, when I have a good coffee, I don't feel like I'm getting a lot of caffeine. I feel like it's a controllable amount of caffeine. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like super cranked up when I have but I've had other cups of coffee where I don't know the source of the coffee, and you have it, and I feel like I'm walking, and I feel like I feel like the blood's going through my veins. I feel like jacked up on caffeine, and it's different on the caffeine energy I get from a clean cup of coffee. Just feels constant. It feels like a nice level of energy. But okay, so there was the French press, and the equipment that people should use is just like, I think Bodum is one of the bigger French press makers, right? They make those little glass things and you press down.
Exactly.
You can get it on Amazon.
On Amazon,
IKEA has them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Canadian
and you can
Tire.
get a little scale off Amazon too to measure your coffee.
But if the scale, becomes so much of another gadget, and you don't have so much counter space, like I would use the rule of thumb of the tablespoon,
which is 8 grams.
And 1 gram less, 1 gram more. It's
okay.
Not really
and then
good.
A kettle to boil the coffee, a plastic spoon, or a wooden spoon to mix the coffee,
or metal.
Metal. Yeah, I think I was feeling like I was going to break my
plastic,
glass.
Man. What are you?
No, you know what it was? I think I put a metal
What is
spoon in
this?
my glass thing, and I think I was like, it was all hot. I'm like, I'm going to crack this thing because I was stirring a little bit too hard. Okay, and the pour over, how does the pour over work? You need one of those. Where do you get those little vase looking things that sits on top of a glass?
So it can be online or your local coffee shop.
And what's the name of it? Just a pour over?
V60.
A V60?
A V60.
That's the generic name, or that's a brand name?
So that comes from Japan, Hario V60.
Oh, okay.
And
Hario's
Hario
the brand.
has a lot of different devices for coffee, which are awesome. But so the difference with the French press is that with that cone, you have to be actively brewing your coffee.
Okay.
So if it's something that you do in the morning and you just want, maybe to finish, to get ready for go to work, like the French press, you can just put the timer and that's it. So I find that very convenient. But if you want, to enjoy the process and everything, to me, go with the cone and the paper filter. And
the paper filters, where do you buy those?
They come with the cone.
Okay.
But again, same place online or the local coffee shop. They
okay,
always.
So you buy one of these V60s. Is it also a coarse ground?
No, that will be medium. What we say, medium grind.
Medium grind. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mixing
medium.
up all the lingo here. Medium grind.
Medium.
Okay. Paper filter, medium grind, and then you pour over gently, not so there's a flood of water in there, so the extraction process is proper.
Exactly.
So it'll take you how long to do a pour over then?
It takes 4 minutes.
That's how long you guys were doing the pour over for?
Yeah.
So you pour over a little bit, you wait. You pour over another little bit and wait. That's how it goes?
Well, you basically pour like 3 times the amount, but you wait because of the shape of the cone and the resistance of the ground, the coffee ground, to allow the whole amount of water to pass through. That's
okay. Got it. And is it also a 14-to-1 ratio on water? It is.
Yeah, I always say start there, and
Yeah.
according to your own desire. Like if you want like more stronger one, then up those.
Does it matter? I guess it's better if you grind the beans fresh right before you make the cup.
Yeah,
okay.
Always.
See, how can he ask such
Well,
a
I don't
question?
know. I mean, look, I saw that you sell bags of ground coffee.
Well,
I'm like,
so how long does it stay good in the bag of coffee once it's ground?
So if you take care of it, like the bag basically protects the bean from moisture, sunlight, and oxygen, which are really the elements that work against the coffee. So if you have the bag untouched, so I would say within 3 months, unless you're a professional Q grader, coffee connoisseur,
Okay, you can't tell a difference.
I don't think so.
Okay, but you're saying a professional can?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would say take it within a month, and if you grind your like your weekly consumption of coffee, that's fine. That's sometimes we do
Which
that.
is, I think, a lot of people will do. They'll grind how much they need for the week. And then store it in where? What would be a good thing to store?
If you have an airtight container.
Just any airtight
container.
But so you don't need to do it fresh then. You can do
it.
That's what I'm saying.
But if you really want it, I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be like the best. But
Nick,
again,
if you really want to talk to us about the thing, now I'm with Gustavo. I'm on this side. I'm on the part of the third wave.
No, I can tell the difference in my questions and your questions are like, what's this pour over and how? Why do you have to pour for 4 minutes? I'm like, how the hell do you grind the beans?
Yeah. No, again, it will be, I guess, the same with many gourmet products. But if you start with a very good ingredient, then even though it might lose something, it's still going to be great.
Yeah, okay.
That's
So that's like me and my meat. I can talk about my meat for a long time.
Yeah.
I go and visit my cows. I go to my cows and I talk to them. I'm like, I'm gonna eat you soon. Me and you, we're gonna hang out at my dinner table.
He chases some chickens around. You're gonna be mine next.
Give me your eggs.
That's a good example. Some people, I don't eat meat, but if I've seen people that they are passionate about it, and they always tell me, if you have a good steak, you don't burn it. You don't overcook it.
Oh, it's hard. You gotta try to overcook it.
You don't throw a gallon of sauce on top of it. Right?
Yeah, it's blasphemy.
So exactly the same with coffee. Like no need of sugar, no need of cream, no need of any of that if the coffee is really
like
really
any good quality stuff. Well, I mean, it's no different than the tequila. I was drinking some of that tequila on the weekend with some neighbors were over.
You gave some of your neighbors the good stuff?
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I must have been drinking too much that day. No, and they drank it, and they were like, "Wow, this is not what I was expecting." As far
was it cold or room temperature?
It wasn't freezer cold. It was cold, but it wasn't like freezer cold, like because it's nicer even when it's like that. But it was a good temperature, and they were shocked,
right?
And then they quickly wanted another one.
Yeah, some people don't like tequila. I have some Don Julio 1942 at home, chilled. And so if you don't like tequila and you have that tequila, you're like, okay. But then the real way, Nick and I will like to have it sometimes is warm, so you could taste the flavors and stuff. But someone who's like just getting into it will chill it and give it to them. And they usually are like, oh, what's that?
Yeah,
that's not the tequila I'm used to. But with the coffee, I find part of the frustration around a good cup of coffee is, I guess it also makes it really fulfilling when you get a good cup, is playing around with the grinds. Like when I first got my own hand grounder, I didn't understand how to set the little internal mechanism to get fine grounds and coarser grounds. So you end up ruining a few cups of coffee. And because you can only have a few cups of coffee a day, you end up like, damn, I messed that coffee up. And I'm kind of like pissed off. I'm like, I don't know if this happens to you, but I'm like, shit, I screwed that up, and I'm disappointed in my coffee, and it kind of ruins my day a little bit. I'll just tell you the truth. And then the next day I'm all hyped up again. I'm like, okay, today I'm going to get it right. And I try to grind it perfectly. And when you nail all of the things properly, you just feel like you hit the jackpot, right?
It is.
And then you can keep it. Then you know all the things that you're going to do. But when you ruin it, it's kind of like just frustrating.
Yeah.
You've gone through the same process, I assume?
In the espresso world, we call that the God shot. When you but it doesn't happen again.
I like that.
Everything,
That's
the
good.
God
The
shot.
God
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah. I feel like the God shot will happen for me after a specific meal. Then I have the espresso perfectly kind of set up, and it just kind of hits perfectly.
Let me ask something else, and I don't know if this is true or not. Are the quality of beans that some other countries will take, so let's say like the European Union, do they hold the coffee beans that you're allowed to import to a higher standard than like Canada does?
I wouldn't really. I don't have any information that would signal that.
Yeah.
No, because for exporting there are some like worldwide aspects that you have to fulfill in terms of size, defects, everything. So I don't think so.
Okay.
I just think that in North America, traditionally, until the very, very recent years, the beans have been very much of like the same kind of beans.
I see.
Like bold and rich.
Like, you cannot do so much with them, right? And I just think that Europe has in some places in Asia, they have been opening these channels for more exclusive
which is a little bit of a disservice, I find, because I find here in Canada, if you give somebody a cup of coffee and it's not bold and rich, they think it's not a good cup of coffee because they're used to bold and rich.
Yeah.
So if you have a light, flavorful, almost like Nick, a fruity type flavor, some people will be like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm tasting.
But it's like wine. I mean,
It's an education.
wine's come a long way too
totally.
with different people. It does, you don't have to like this type of wine because it's from an old world, vineyard, right? You can like a Chilean wine that's a lot cheaper, but it's only cheaper because it doesn't have the name behind it and it's a new vineyard or something.
I just find we're not there with coffee yet. But
No, I agree. But I just mean, I think people are more open to stuff as they learn things, but you're right. But it's just because you're battling. Like in wine, it wasn't the same. All these different restaurants have the same thing. You have the LCBO, but you're battling like 2 or 3 main providers of coffee. Like you're trying to really change. That's a hard consumer habit to change.
Yeah.
But the people, once the people break through, like you, there's no turning back.
It's fun. It's a bit of a distraction, I have to admit, and it's a little bit meditative. When I go through the process of brewing the coffee, I do find it very relaxing for some reason.
Yes.
The grinding, the brewing, it sounds ridiculous maybe, but I do find that way. Yeah, no, I know you're... So I have to ask you something now. In my espresso machine, can you put beans that are not like an espresso roast in an espresso machine?
Yes.
What am I actually... Am I getting the right flavors through it though?
So espresso really it means by pressure.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So it's a process of brewing. So technically you can put anything.
Beans. Okay.
The only thing that's going to happen is the espresso, it highlights the acidity in the lighter roasts. So if you have a very light roasted coffee and you make an espresso, it's going to be very acid, maybe even sour. So once again,
that's so funny you say that, because the roast I was playing with before I met you was a lighter roast, and it was coming out sour. That's what started me down the path of changing my ground.
Yeah,
because it's Nick. I had that lighter roast I was getting, and it wasn't espresso roast. I'm like, oh, what's wrong with this coffee? It's like soury or something.
And then you can go coarser and adjust.
You can adjust for
somehow.
That. Yeah,
but there's a limit.
Yeah. There's a range that you can kind of play with. Okay, so you can do a non-espresso kind of roast. You just might have to play with your settings a little bit.
And it will always be bright, as we say, the terminology with wine. It's going to be citric or acid. While if it's more medium to dark or medium roast, you will feel more the chocolatey traditional notes that will blend nicely with. Okay.
And then so on an espresso, a proper espresso grind should be fine.
Powdered talc.
Yeah. Okay. So now one more question for you. On the stovetop machines, for years, when Nick and I started this business, I needed some coffee at night to stay up because I was getting up at like 4:30 in the morning and we were staying up till midnight and trying to, I had kids and starting a new business and I was losing it. So I needed coffee later at night than I usually had. So I got the stovetop mocha. Is it a mocha machine?
They call it mocha pot, percolator.
Oh, percolator. What kind of coffee? I always thought it was like an espresso. What am I brewing? Because it is pressure based.
Yeah.
What am I actually brewing in those machines? For those of you who don't know, it's a machine that sits on your stovetop. Everyone's seen one. It's usually silver, kind of like a skinny middle, goes wider at the bottom and top. You put the coffee grinds in the middle, usually finely ground.
Yeah.
And then water at the bottom. You put it on your stove, and then it the water boils and the steam provides the pressure, correct?
Exactly. So that is, in theory, it was an alternative for the espresso.
It was
very
the
famous.
poor man's espresso.
You know, it was very famous in Spain, Portugal. But what happens with that method, it is that because of the temperature, because water it has to boil to come up.
Oh, got it. So you're kind of harming the flavors.
So the temperature is 100 degrees, and then it burns the grounds. So it tends always to be bitter, regardless of the coffee that you use. I have used it. It has its place, can be enjoyed as well, but that's the trade-off.
Okay. So tell us the story of Firebat. Where does the name come from for Firebat Coffee?
So, it took a long time really to come up with the name. Like, you are soul searching, basically. And
it's part of your identity, right?
Yeah. And we wanted something with fire, again, because of the amount of volcanoes that we have and how important it is for coffee, the volcanic soil. So we kind of had that part reserved, something with fire. And then we started, what can be a symbol that can project our spirit, right? And bats, they are pollinators, by the way. So
are they?
Yeah. They are pollinators. They
You're telling me bats play an important role in our ecosystem?
Yeah.
Oh,
and they protect the forests in rainforests. So basically, they keep the insects at bay, and they spread the seeds always a little bit further, so the forest can grow. And when we were, embarking in this project, we were like, we are using other senses than the usual ones, violating all the rules of business and everything. We're like, we felt a little bit blind in a way, but with this kind of inner sonar, right, that is telling you, do this. And so the bat, in the Mayan mythology, which is the ancient civilization of our, that territory, Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, it means change of habits. So experiencing the coffee that we usually were getting, we were like, no, you know what? We can change this. We can do something different. And very humble, small animal, but it does a lot of things. So we chose the bat and just merge it. Cool.
So for anyone listening to this, what would you like them to know about coffee that we haven't discussed yet? Is there something, just about it that you always find yourself repeating yourself about coffee? I think that it's a fruit. Most people don't know it's a fruit. Most people don't know that you can enjoy a really good cup yourself using like a French press.
Yeah, right? I say maybe people don't, they are unaware that the vast amount of flavors that can be packed inside a coffee bean. That's what I'm always, and they're like, how? But this is like watermelon. How come this got into this? And we're like, it's the most complex beverage on earth.
So one of the ones that you're selling off your website, what are the flavor profiles of some of the ones? I know you have an espresso roast. What else do you have? Because you have lighter roast too.
Yeah, most of them are in the medium to light world. So we have one, Las Ranas, which is like red fruits and notes of nugget. We have the Shangri-La, which is citric, clementine, and molasses type of coffee. The Don Jaime, predominantly honey, apricot, red cherry acidity. And we have the Calera, which is awesome. It's very chocolatey with an acidity that would resemble like raisins or the skin of a prune. Milady, which is again chocolatey, cacao nibs. We have a decaf option.
What's your most popular?
Among the connoisseurs, it's one that right now we don't have stock for that. It's the Roxanita. That was berries, pure berry. Like you have put strawberries, blackberries. And right now I feel like Don Jaime is getting that place just because of how exotic it is. And
I'm going to sneak into your store, to your roastery and have some of this. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to show up one day.
Yeah. And so that's one. And then for the people that they like more bolder coffees, it's the Milady.
Okay.
The Milady.
And where would is it to go to the website if they want your coffee? Do you want to call out one of the store, or is it just the website the best place to go to?
Yeah, I would say that the website, because usually with our retailers, they order some of them. So if you want to have the whole line, it will be the website.
Okay,
the
and that's
best option.
firebatcoffee.com.
.com.
Right, and on Instagram, it's your handle is Firebat Coffee as well. So I guess people can ask you even. I don't want to say this, but I guess someone could throw a question on Instagram. I know. Yeah. You're active on your Instagram.
Super active.
Yeah. Okay, Nick. I feel like there's more to talk about, but in the interest of time, I think we'll wrap it up there. Is there anything else?
This is more coffee talk than I've had in my whole life. So,
and you will.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when we travel in the summer. Our families go to Croatia. And I pack my beans. I take my grinder. I left it over there now, so I have multiple French press. I have a scale that I bring back and forth, and I just can't tell you. It's a really it's fun, you know, to go through this whole experience of testing different coffees out. So now to run into you and know that you're roasting them right here in Oakville, bringing them up from El Salvador. And what do you call it? Is it a single source or?
Yeah. So that is now the fourth wave of coffee, which is very.
Whoa, Nick, we just got the third wave.
Yeah.
What's the fourth wave?
I'm on the first wave.
What's the fourth
I'm on taster's choice still.
No, the fourth wave is really a more intricate relationship with the producer. It is more
okay, kind of like a farm to table in the restaurant world.
But not only you go once a year and you buy it, but more to be, you know, in a medium to long term relationship with producers.
Like I was joking, investing in the farm and doing that kind of stuff. That's happening where people are just taking a proactive approach.
Yeah.
The world's changing.
Yeah,
that's cool to hear.
Yeah, I think, we want a world where people can do what they love to do, right?
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
With it. And I feel sometimes in urban centers, like a big city like Toronto, sometimes you feel separated. So to get these little moments where you can feel connected back to agriculture and the world in that way, I think is really important and healthy for all of us.
Yeah.
Gustavo, am I saying your name properly now?
Gustavo.
Yeah. Thank you for, you didn't have to come in here and do this and share this, but your passion for this really comes out when you talk about it. So really, thank you. Welcome to Canada. We are honored to have such a beautiful family like yourself coming and working in Oakville. So feel blessed that we have crossed paths. And thanks for putting on such a great show for the team when we had all the team tasting the coffee there. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're so happy here. I'm not going to lie. Winter is tough.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a great place.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Tom Gradis. Hopefully you enjoyed that talk. I definitely did. And listen, this is the Your Life, Your Terms podcast. So we sometimes talk about real estate, but sometimes we talk about just living life on your terms. And sometimes that involves a lot of coffee talk. So that's why we discuss coffee. But if you are listening to this and you do want real estate specific information, the best place to go will always be rockstarinnercircle.com. We're putting up new articles regularly, new videos regularly. You have access to our classes from that website. You can download free copies of 4 different books now on that website. The latest book just went up a couple months ago. Some of this information has taken us years to figure out, and we're putting it into books that we're giving away for free. And the reason that we do that is that we hope that you will download the books, and at some point you will think that we've shared enough value with us that you might explore working together with us in some sort of capacity at some point in the future. That's why we're doing this. So you can go to www.rockstarinnercircle.com to get all your real estate information needs fulfilled. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.